Welcome to another episode of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. Ooh, we got a good one for you guys today. We got our original Green Beret, mover of hearts and minds, shaker of worlds, freer of the oppressed, liberator of the oppressed. That's the correct verbiage, isn't it? Zee Durham. What's happening, brother?
Hey, it's good to be here, Mick. I'm glad to finally get on here again. Been planning it like 100 times.
What's your shirt say? Public Enemy?
No, Public Radio Nerd.
All right. I was way off. I thought maybe it was like Public Enemy or Public. What was that band when we were kids?
Yeah, Public Enemy.
Yeah, Public Enemy. That's what I thought maybe you had on, since you're a hip hopper.
Yeah, I would wear a Public Enemy shirt, but
would you? I wouldn't know one of their tunes, but
you might know their Flavor Flav character that's been on TV.
Was that Flavor Flav was Public Enemy?
Yeah, he was their original hype guy.
We're like the whole freaking wall clock. Okay, yeah. I wouldn't have known that was him. Now I remember. Old school.
Yeah.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. Enjoying this colder weather.
Yeah, we have been burning fires up here daily. Yeah, you and I, just for the people listening, you and I decided to do this like almost a year ago, and then we had all kinds of technical difficulties because we're not IT geeks. Although your Public Radio Nerd shirt makes me kind of think differently about that. Where do you even find a shirt like that?
I donated to the
NPR,
and
okay.
I donate on a regular basis. I just enjoy their content, and they sent me the shirt.
I like that. I'm going to have to check that out because I think I need that. I listen to NPR. That's good stuff, man. It's like it's liberal a lot of times, but it's also usually like honest. It's not biased.
Yeah, I feel like they're very objective, and they just take what you're giving them and don't add anything to it. You know? Yeah,
from a liberal slant.
I get
it. They don't really talk about, like, you're never going to hear like stuff about Second Amendment rights on NPR.
No, they're not on there praising Trump either, but they're not necessarily bad mouthing them. Some of their guests, I guess, will have their opinions, but the actual interviewers and the ones doing the interviewing, they just let them talk. Don't really add much to it. You know what I mean? That's what I find from it. And I like their subjects. Like, they do anything from, I don't know, like an elephant lost in the wild and was recovered, or to political issues, you know. So it's all captivating to me. And it's not just from a political standpoint or something to do with business or industry. They got all kinds of stories, you know.
I agree. If I'm on the road, I often will listen to NPR. That's a broad spectrum of information, like you're saying.
Yeah, it's good for us.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I say it's good for us to not get pigeonholed on what we take in all the time. You know what I mean? We got to have perspective.
One of my uncles used to, on the job site, would play like CNN for a couple hours. He'd play Fox for a couple hours, and then we'd have NPR radio on for a couple hours during the day. He thought you get a whole mix, and then you could kind of decide what was good or bad based on the, you know, the swath, because the liberal radio would be all biased and the conservative radio would be all biased.
Yeah,
I like BBC too. I listen to BBC sometimes. They talk about Americans and their crazy gun laws, and Donald Trump yet again posts information with zero facts. That's usually how they do it. So you and I started talking recently about some topics to discuss, and the one that we discussed last was emotional intelligence. Remember that discussion?
Yeah. I think we were talking about that a little bit. I was telling you kind of my background in that, and then my path trying to have emotional intelligence. And I kind of, like your uncle, deliberately tried to spread his intake of news, I deliberately try to have a plan and figure out what's going on with me emotionally and how to control that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of guys, you know, I'm a man, so I can't really speak for all men, but in my experience, a lot of guys, we try to assume that we don't have any emotions, and we lock that away, and we're logical, not emotional so much, especially guys in our fields, you know, the what many consider to be the man's man. You know, you deal with guns and you worry about defending yourself and yada yada, or military, law enforcement background, etc. They like to think they're not emotional, and they figure it out. Hopefully, they figure it out at some point. But a lot of times, it's late in the game when there's some kind of catastrophe in their life, you know. Then they figure out, you know what, maybe me bottling up emotions has something to do with this. Anyway, that's the way I looked at it. And I use the analogy, you're stuffing 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, the seams are going to bust at some point, right? And whether you like it or not, you're a human and you do have emotions. Even if you choose to avoid them as long as you can, they're still there. And it still comes out some way. Sometimes it comes out in their passive aggression because they swear they're not being emotional about something because they can't be honest with themselves. And they'll get passive aggressive, or they'll have you ever been mad at somebody and then you sat and thought about it and said, why am I feeling this way towards them? Why? And you haven't really come to terms with it in your head because you're so used to suppressing that, saying, nah, that shit don't bother me. That shit don't bother me because I'm a man, or I'm too tough for that. But it is bothering you. You're just choosing to look the other way.
Right.
And then your actions speak different. It comes out anyway, right? And it can be passive aggressive instead of just straight aggression, direct aggression, right? And that's what's happening. You're suppressing that bullshit and you're trying to pretend like you're something that you're not. And you're not fooling anybody. You're not fooling anybody except yourself, really. So emotional intelligence is just understanding what your emotions are, being honest with yourself that you are emotional to a certain degree. Some people are more dramatic than others. I'm an emotional person. I'm a passionate person. I'm different than some people, but we all have emotions because we're humans. So understanding those emotions, being honest to yourself about your emotions, and just asking critical questions like, why am I feeling this way? What is the thought that goes along with that emotion? Which is another part of it that people sometimes don't realize. And I don't think I really thought about it until I got trained in this area. Thoughts create emotions, not the other way around. You don't have an emotion and then makes a thought. Some thought or belief inside your head is making you feel a certain way. So when you feel a certain way and you don't understand why, you need to think back, all right, put the pieces together. What is the thought that is creating this emotion? And sometimes you'll find that it's some kind of belief that may not be true to you anymore. That maybe it's just a blueprint that you had since a kid from your culture or raising, nature, nurture, whatever. And then you dissect it and figure out, why am I thinking like this? What is pointing me in this direction and causing me to have these emotions that I don't want, right? So that path and figuring all that shit out is what I consider emotional intelligence. And, you know, we're always on a path of learning. I mean, we never learned it all, right? We shouldn't never be at the end of our time as a student in life. You know what I mean?
I think one of the reasons that we wanted to talk about this, just so people listening understand the context, besides just being a well-rounded human or a better father or brother, whatever the goal is there, how this directly correlates to our ability to keep ourselves safe in violence or evade violence. Like a very good example of somebody allowing their emotions to control them is two dudes getting this pushing match in the bar and it turns violent. Like, well, I'm not going to let that guy win. He made me look like a bitch in front of my friends, or I don't want to look like a bitch in front of my friends or my girl or whatever. And now you got no teeth, or you got shot in the face or stabbed in the guts. I told the story before about watching a guy get his jaw freaking bent straight sideways, got punted in the face over that scenario. Two guys having a dumb macho pissing contest. And it ended up with his jaw wired shut for 5 months. And to this day, he doesn't look the same. Like, and that's one of the reasons that we wanted to talk about this, not just to stay out of violence, but in class this past weekend, everybody always wants to talk about when can I shoot somebody, like that I won't go to jail. And the discussion from my perspective, our perspective usually you don't have to, because you're like looking for a reason to use violence rather than looking for a reason to evade violence. So I wanted to make sure people understood why we were talking about this. Not that you didn't do a great explanation there, but just to set the tone for what we're talking about.
Of course. And I mean, besides the obvious, like you said, father, husband, mother, sister, brother, whatever, personal lives in general, it resonates strongly with our type industry and what we do, self-defense, that emotion that comes along with it. And it is going to make you a more well-rounded person and a better person, I like to think, the more you understand yourself and you understand where these emotions come from and why you're feeling certain things, and how to control that, right, through your thoughts. Because you just don't say, I feel scared. Don't be scared, Z, and then you're not scared. That's not how it works. Right? I don't say, I feel sad. Don't be sad, Z, and then that's it. I fixed it because I told myself don't do that. No, you figure out why you're feeling that, and you give yourself different information or a different thought that counters or revokes whatever wrong input that's giving you those emotions, right? Or reassures you so that you can not be scared, right? Certain things like that. So it plays a huge part in protecting yourself, keeping yourself out of trouble by not escalating situations, trying to de-escalate, because you're intelligent enough to understand that, hey, I feel embarrassed right now, and I feel like I'm being put on the spot, and this guy talking shit to me and me not responding in kind and equaling his aggression makes me a pussy. So when you say that, that might be your initial emotion because you feel less than for some reason. Some thought in your head said, I look like an idiot in front of these people. But then the emotional intelligence part comes, and it can happen in a millisecond if you practice this stuff. But it's me reflecting and going internal and saying, Z, why am I feeling like this and angry with this guy for embarrassing me? Because he tested my self-confidence, and I feel like people are judging me thinking I'm a pussy. Z, are you a pussy? Do you need to prove yourself to these people? Do you need to show this guy that you are tougher than him, or that you can equal his amount of aggression? Do I need to do any of that? And is it worth me doing that for the consequences that are going to come after this?
Right.
So all that stuff is taking place, and that's simply what it is. I'm figuring out what that thought is that's causing me to feel that way. Then I'm giving myself better information or truthful information a lot of times, because you're telling yourself a lie based off of some cultural bullshit, right? So I'm like, oh no, I don't have to prove myself to him. There is no real reason or anything to be gained from me equaling that aggression or escalating the situation. So that being said, I reassured myself, and now I don't feel like such an idiot because I told myself, hey, remember, Z, that you are this person. You are capable of these things. Do you need to show these people that you are? No. Do you know that you are inside? Yes. That's it. Now my logical mind state comes back, and I'm like, well, that's logical. I am capable. I know I put in the work. I know I've trained. I know my background. I know me as a human. And I don't need to prove anything to these guys. And you know what? It's fine if somebody badmouths me or punks me in public, because I know I'm not a punk. I'm thinking about the bigger picture. So all that stuff taking place and making that a habit, almost pushing it to your subconscious, like we do our fundamentals of marksmanship. We want to push it to our subconscious so we can think about what's important in front of us right at that point. That's what we're doing. So I'm practicing that thought process until it becomes automatic, hopefully.
Right on. The interesting thing about all of that is, it, for me, my interpretation of that is it all comes back to like the simple love of self. I love myself enough that I will not ruin my day, ruin my life over something. And it doesn't have to always be violence, right? It could be like the guy that cuts you off. Now my whole day's ruined. I was having a fine morning until this guy cut me off. Now my whole day's ruined. Well, he didn't do it. You did it. You let that person flip the switch in your brain. As you're saying, you reacted to those negative emotions. No, I didn't. He did it. Okay, so now you just gave the power of joy that you have in your life, or happiness or calm or peace or whatever word you wish to use. You just give it away to anybody that crosses your path, any leaf that blows by, just like the dude in the bar.
And another part of what you just said is another concept, thinking in generalities, thinking in general.
Excuse me. Yeah, I aspirated on
Your gag reflex was gone a long time ago. But speaking in generalities, like not just placing blame, but also saying what you said is what we exactly what we do in our head sometimes. Yeah, he's all day up. But if I thought logically, did he actually all day up? No. So when we do that sometimes, like, you know, when you argue with your loved ones or whatever, we speak in generalities, like, you're always doing this. Every time we do this, you do that. Is that true? What the hell was that?
I put my finger on the trigger. My bad. The generalities, I interrupted you with the trigger alarm.
Yeah, it scared the shit out of me.
Me too.
My watch is going on. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. But yeah, those generalities, I tell myself, so first off, I'm mad because you did something, because I've already prepped in my head, like you and I both have talked about being mad in traffic, you know, and having kind of a road rage instances. It definitely bothers me as well. But I have to tell myself, hey, you know, first off, I know it's not worth anything that I might do in those situations. And second off, it hasn't day up. It's just one thing. Let that go by and push on to the next issue or intersection or whatever the hell it is, and don't speak. It hasn't day up. Yeah, there's a bump in the road. Moving on. That's not going to define the rest of my day. Not going to do it. I tell these kids, you know, I've told you I've been coaching football for my 10-year-old son, and I coached this year. And it's hard not to get in your emotions especially when your own son's playing, right? Anybody that's got a child out there and you see them playing on a you know, competitive level or performing at school in a play or whatever, you always feel like you're somehow involved with that, and you want them to do so well because they're coming from you, they're yours. So you get emotionally involved. It's hard not to. And then when you get in, you're intimate with the team, like I'm in there being the coach and on the sidelines, seeing these kids face to face.
Yeah, man.
And we've been coaching them up to go perform, and they don't get the results that they want. It's hard not to be emotional. And you have to control that stuff, because if you're emotional, what do you think the kids do? It's contagious. It's contagious. They see you being emotional and not thinking straight and getting riled up for beyond anything that is going to be positive for you. And they do the same thing. They get out there and they just get all mad and they start complaining, well, that guy's holding me, or this guy's doing this, and so didn't do his job. And, you know, it's all the blame game. So what we practice as coaches, and for me, it was very hard. It was a lesson. Something as small as just coaching football was a lesson for me that I applied in all my life. I got in the huddle. Anytime they had a play, we tried to do a play, and the other team would just stuff them. They wouldn't go anywhere. My son was the quarterback. He'd get pancaked flat on his back. And I'd be like, hey, you got to do your job. after I got onto them real quick and, you know, in the football mindset or the aggressive mindset, then I said, slowed it down. I was like, all right, but listen to this. That play's over. That's done now. We're moving on to the next one. Forget that. Moving on. Short memory. That's all over. Doesn't help us to think about that for this next play at all. Doesn't help at all.
Mm-hmm.
All we got to do, the only thing that helps is whatever I messed up, just fix it. Do the job that you know how to do. But who cares about what happened or what should have done or should have been or whatever? Moving on. And that's how I would start everything. I'd have to be calm and I'd tell them, hey, forget about it. Over. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter anymore.
Good analogy for life right there.
Perfect, man. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's the road rage. The guy cut me off. Him ruined my day. All right, Mickey. Self. That's over. He was moving on. Whatever. He probably he was in a rush and he didn't see me. Whatever. Moving on. Day. It's not going to define my day. I got things to do. All right. So it's a great lesson, and it really put it into practice for me being on that football field. And I know I'm not a sport nut like I used to be when I was a kid, and you know, sports means shit to me, but it does have a lot of principles and practical application for life, working together as a team, pushing through adversity, the physical part, obviously. And then for a coach, just an old dad trying not to be emotional and win the Pee Wee Super Bowl ring that's so coveted, right? It's going to make my life better. Getting in there. Yeah. Remember back in the day when I won this one? Al Bundy.
I actually did that with my son with Pinewood Derby. We may or may not have polished the axles of those Pinewood Derby cars up to like 2,000 grit sandpaper on the drill press. I may or may not have. Yeah, I may or may not have been screaming, yeah, as our car was winning against all others.
Put little red kid's face.
You're a loser, Kyle, and your dad sucks. No, I get exactly what you're saying. Though. You get so keyed up in that moment, our desire to win, to do good. My daughter the other day, I was in Texas, and it was kind of a big deal. I flew, so I didn't have my vehicle, so she used my truck. She's never drove my truck without me in it. And I'm not a weirdo like, oh, it's my truck. You can't touch my truck.
Yeah, but she's a little girl, and it's a big truck with a lot of corners way out there. Yeah.
So she, I don't like to, you've been with me in class. I don't spend a lot of time on safety briefings. I tell people, here's this, how we're going to be safe. Let's be safe. Because to me, if we sit and fixate on it, you guys don't want to shoot each other. Shooting each other is bad. And just keep talking about this. That's what you're thinking about. So before I left, I told her, you're going to be safe. Everything's going to be awesome. Don't just drive the speed limit. She's drove my truck all over the country with me. Well, Sunday night, I'm out having dinner with the guys after class, and my phone rings. Dad, don't be mad. I was like, and I wasn't mad. I said, are you okay? I'm fine. She, pulling out of the gas station, kissed one of the bollards, the concrete tubes, that protects the gas pump, and folded in the bed of my truck. Now she's going to be pissed because I told her I wasn't going to tell people this story, but it's a perfect story. If that was my old man, he'd have freaking climbed through the phone and choked me to death. But she's okay. She knew what she did. She didn't do it on purpose. She realized she turned too sharp, and she was really amazed I didn't get mad at her. I said, well, I'm not happy, but like, what am I going to do? Lose my shit, ruin my meal, be angry because now I have insurance and whatever, it's done. But I also, to the point you just made about parents or adults, I remember my father would have lost his shit. 15 years ago, I would have probably not yelled at her, but hung up and been like, and just like been totally angry. Whatever. I was not upset at all. And so I want her to see something like that is not worth an emotional outburst for. Now, last night, I dropped a freaking log on my foot, a big oak log on my bare foot. I've got a bruise like this on top of my foot. And when I dropped it, I went, I'm not in anger, but it freaking hurt, and it elicited a response. Sharon was sitting next to me by the fireplace, and she's like, why do you got to scream? And she looked at my foot. It was already like black in like 30 seconds. It was a 10-pound log that just drop right on the top of my bare foot.
Tell her come over there and let you drop that log on her foot.
Let me let you try this and see how it goes. But this was the point I wanted to make. Like, the goal at the end of the day is kind of what should dictate your behavior in response. Like, my goal every day is to suck as much enjoyment out of the day as possible. I can't meet that goal if I'm shot dead. I can't meet that goal if I'm angry because somebody cut me off. I can't meet that goal now my wife, if she was on here, would probably add something. But if I'm having an argument with my wife, like, this was when you just were talking about this, popped in my head. Like, how many times can we just say, like, you brought up the analogy of the last play is over with, can't go back to that play. But how many times do we talk to our spouse and we go, you remember the time you did? Are you going to do that again? You do that all the time. Like, why can't we just say, like, yes, that's over with, and I'm guilty of it. What are you going to do? Blah, blah, blah. You're going to say that like you always do. You're going to do that like you always do. How about we just, like, if we could do that, I think we have the ability to, but if we could do that, just say that was yesterday or last month or last year, done. And and we do it because of why? Because we want to freaking hurt the person. We want to freaking, it sucks.
Or we go back and forth. We don't trust each other's trying to make adjustments or progression.
Yes.
You know, it's crazy. It's crazy. A lot of time, you know, moving forward with this concept is, guys, we're talking about the blueprint or the belief that you have internally, like who you think you are. So you might tell yourself certain things, but what you truly believe in your head is what you think about yourself, right? And that emotional intelligence comes down to being honest with yourself. And some guys have reactions based off of fundamental beliefs that they have at their core. So the guys that have, I call it the bouncer mentality, because I train a lot of security guards and law enforcement. And when we talk about, you know, de-escalating, we don't want the bouncer mindset. Like you see the regular bars, the bouncer, he's like looking for the guy, like, who am I going to punk out today? And what drunk guy am I going to manhandle? You know, and to show people that I'm the baddest around or whatever. That's that bouncer mindset, I call it. And what's going on in that guy's head? I know everybody will say the cliche stuff. Well, he's compensating for, you know, low self-esteem and all that. I know that's cliche to say, but it's really true. Like, they have a fundamental belief inside them that they have to prove something, you know, through their actions on a regular basis to continue to reassure themselves that they are who they want to be or who they want to project themselves as being, you know. So when we do that, so if I say I'm on the range and I mess up, I practice, because I'm my own worst critic, right? I'm sure you're the same. Like, I don't need anybody telling me how bad I am at something, because I will do all that myself. I know. I'll probably overdo it. But if I mess up on the range, I have to tell myself, all right, you messed up. Why did you mess up, Z? Is it because you're not capable, or you suck? You're just a piece of shit, speaking in generalities again, and you're just a piece of shit. You don't do shit. And like, no, it's because I didn't mentally prepare, or I wasn't focused because I was worried about what other people thought when I went to perform in front of them. Or maybe just I was focused, but I just didn't have the built-in skills yet. Maybe I just didn't practice enough with my mechanics of my gun, and I mishandled my draw or whatever, because I just simply, you can't just do something good without practicing it, right? We know that. That's what we teach people all the time. You have to practice that stuff and go slow until you can do it all correctly and consistently, and then you get your speed, yada, yada. So talking to ourselves and finding out, Z, why are you thinking like this? Is it true that you are a piece of shit? No. Is it true that you can never do anything right? You know, I'm just going through some of the things that some people may say in their head, and then you say, no, it's not true, right? Is it true? Have you seen before in your life, or have you seen things have good results when you put in the proper preparation or planning and the proper training or the proper time ahead of being put on the spot? Yes, seen that you've had good results doing that. All right. Have you had good results when you were in the proper mindset going into an event or doing something worthwhile. Yes, I've seen good results. Okay, so the big picture is you because you didn't have everything prepared like you should, all right? Or that, well, not necessarily should, but if you want good results, you'll have everything prepared, and you haven't practiced that mindset, or you lost focus, you got nervous because you started second guessing your value or your the way you look to other people. So remember, you are valuable, bottom line. And that's a deeper talk right there. If somebody considers themselves not valuable at all, you have to remind yourself you are valuable. At the end of the day, no matter what your actions are or not, you're valuable, bottom line. So learning that fundamental truth is like step one. If you got a bad childhood, bad parents, something that told you or made you feel like you're a piece of shit, those feelings that you got are from people putting that input or the interactions you've had with those people in your life, and you started to tell your own self that, you got to adjust that first. You got to go correct that somehow. And then that's going to cause a domino effect in your life as far as getting healthier and more of a emotional intelligence that we need. So getting to that fundamental truth is number one, obviously. If you think you're not valuable, you got to know you are. And then continuing to reassess and look at the big picture. All right, like the football analogy. Oh, man, some of the thoughts going through my head that I have to counter is like, man, I'm looking like an idiot in front of these parents. They want their kids to do good. I'm out here looking stupid.
Oh, yeah.
And because parents they're emotional as you are, and some are less emotional.
Coach, what are you doing?
Yeah, they're yelling. They get him out of there. Put my son in or whatever. So you got a lot of pressure, even at that level. And you have to remind yourself, all right, that the big picture is I've got kids out here that are looking at an example. Me losing my cool just for this one play that went bad, or this one game even that went bad. The big picture is I need to teach these children that they need to have emotional intelligence like I'm preaching right now, right? That they need to look past that last play, look beyond that bad game, look beyond that bad week, and say, there's more to life than this. What is the big picture? All right, I have to remind myself, I have to go back to my grounding space or my home base and remind myself of some of the good things in my life. Like, hey, man, I had a good career. I'm fairly healthy for, relatively to other people, right? I get to see kids. I got good kids that come home and love me, right? I'm not addicted to drugs. If I got to go down to the bottom of the barrel to find some motivation to remind myself
food to eat, a hot shower to take every day, wife to sleep next to, a bed.
The basic needs. If I have to go that far down to give myself some perspective, to get out of a funk or to get out of the thoughts in my head that's telling me that everything is shit and I'm shit, then I have to do that. Go down to that bare bones, bottom of the barrel reasons. And hopefully you don't have to do that. You get better at that, and it's automatic. You start telling yourself, hey, I've got a big picture here. It just becomes clear to you once you tell yourself, I've got a big picture here to think about. I on that drill, Mick. I look stupid. I'll do it again. But no love lost. I know I'll come back better, and I know next time I'll be ready. I've learned a lesson today.
Makes me come back to the overlying directive for our life. Call it a goal, call it a mission, call it a plan, whatever it might be. We can't be rudderless or planless. And so if your goal is, again, to have a happy, fulfilled life, start out the day with gratitude. Instead of waiting until you get to the point that you're so pissed off that you have to remind yourself that you have good things, wake up and say, I'm so grateful to be alive. I'm so grateful for this bed I just slept in, or this tent I just slept in, or whatever. I'm thankful for this Egg McMuffin or this delicious $50 breakfast, whatever you have. Be grateful for it. And it in a sense, will change the way that you think. If you get up and God dang it, I got to go to work again. I got to sleep next to this bag again. Kick the dog and go out the door. That sets the tone for not only your day, but your life. You bring that same crap home. You go to bed with that same crap. You wake up with that same crap. Just like acting angry or upset or nervous in front of those kids gives them more of that. So stress and fear and anxiousness begets more stress and fear and anxiousness, and calm and peace and gratitude begets more calm and peace and gratitude.
Right. And what you're saying there, you know, talking about wake up being grateful, thinking about what you have to be thankful for, things like that. And I think people hear that stuff and they're like, stupid, you know, poster, cliche, bullshit, you know what I mean? And I used to think like that. When I hear too much of the shit that's overused and saturating, you know, social media or whatever, I get tired of it. But what helps is to understand, and for those people that aren't so spiritual or religious or whatever, understand that there's a science to it. Like we just said, you look into the science of psychology and think about, and the fact that thoughts create emotions, right? That's, and I'm too experienced to know if that's theory, but as much as we know about humans and their thoughts and emotions, it's believed by the majority of the experts that you'll find anywhere that thoughts lead to emotions, right?
I appreciate that you predicated that on that you're not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but we've watched it work enough times though that we might not be able to use the right words that a PhD will use, but I know what we're talking about is accurate. Right. No PhD is going to tell me otherwise. I've watched it work over and over.
Well, I know a lot of people are cynical, such as myself, or in critical thinking. They don't want to hear a bunch of cliche bullshit or the spiritual aspect. There's science to it. So even when you read the Bible, and I'm not getting into the religious kick, but there's things that people say like, hey, wake up and thank God for what you have every day. It's not just about thanking God. It's not just about counting your blessings, or so to speak. It's about getting those thoughts correct and countering those negative thoughts in your head so you can feel better during the day. Do you want to feel good or do you want to feel bad all day? That's the bottom line, dude. And what's going to lead to those feelings, the thoughts that you have in your head. So let's give some input to our head, control those thoughts, counter those thoughts when when we're telling ourselves generalities or falsehoods, or telling ourselves some shit that somebody else told us that, and we haven't thought about why do we believe that, because we just always were told that, right? Yeah. It's critical thinking. Am I a piece of shit because somebody treated me like a piece of shit? No, I'm not, because this, and this, whatever I can recount about my life and what I've done to counter that shit. And then the feelings become better, bottom line. So it's scientific. So a lot of people see the cliche, count your blessings, and it sounds very simple, but going back and understanding how scientifically, or you can have a plan to control those emotions through your thoughts and getting and change those automatic thoughts that you have to be more positive for you, understanding that. And it doesn't seem so cliche to say that anymore, because when you say that to me, if you say, wake up and figure out what you're grateful for, I understand exactly what you're talking about. And it's not just some words that you're repeating that you've seen on Facebook or something, right? I know that, yeah, you're right, Mick, because I'm waking it up and I'm thinking about, oh, my kids left this here, or damn, you know, I got a dent in my truck, whatever I got to fix. Yeah, that's happening. But the big picture is I don't want to feel like life sucks all day. Yeah. I want to enjoy life. Like you said, your goal is to have joy every day. And what's the sense of living this relatively short amount of time that we have on this earth if we're not going to try to get some joy out of it? You know,
doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. I had a friend send me a message yesterday, and you know, when you're sending text messages, sometimes context or inflection and that kind of is lost. And basically this guy was telling me that there's people in our industry that don't like my energy. And then he was telling me, don't shoot the messenger. And it made me chuckle, because he was like, coming off as my friend, which he is, but then he decided to just out of the blue tell me that. It made me laugh, and I just wrote back. I go, dude, I'm literally laughing over here because you act like you're doing me a favor, reminding me that there's people that don't like me. Like, yeah, man, I know that. Not only do I know that, but I'm okay with that, because if everybody likes me, I'm spineless. It means I have no integrity in my thoughts or deeds whatsoever, because I'll just do whatever everybody else wants me to do. So I'm like, I appreciate that you pass that on, but it's okay that not everybody likes me. And we kind of like the conversation ended on that note. And I woke up this morning and I thought about it again, and I wasn't angry or upset about it, but it just kind of made me chuckle that it made me think that is something important to him, that everybody likes him. And perhaps even that we're friends, maybe it bothered him, like, hey, me and Z are friends and not everybody likes Z. So now that comes back on me, like, oh, you're friends with a guy that not everybody likes. Like, that's what I thought about. Perhaps he was his interpretation of it, or the reason for telling me is like, you know, I'm getting some flack from people that I know you. Okay, well, if that bothers you, like, you know, that's okay. But we spend so much energy thinking about shit that doesn't affect the happiness or outcome of our life, and then you're dead anyway, like you just said. So what I finally told him was, I got to do me. I got to lay my head down at night and be happy with what I did, good, bad, right, or wrong. So that's my course. That's my goal. And as long as you're not doing things that are hurting other people, anybody else can just kind of kiss ass.
Let's unpack that real quick, Nick. Let's unpack it. And you know me. I try to be as genuine as possible. Yeah. And I try to be fully transparent, right or wrong. I try to. It's something inside of me that longs to be transparent. It's just who I am.
I have the same thing. That's why I think you and I chat like we do.
Right. And, it sucks sometimes because I realize I'm a shithead sometimes. But I also realize the fundamental truth that everybody's a shithead sometimes.
Yeah.
We're all flawed.
Yeah.
So that if I can't make myself happy, I just remember that I'm the same as everybody else. And then I have to remember, all right, Z, you're good sometimes when you do this or whatever. But anyway, so unpacking that a little bit about what your buddy said, and I thought about this the other day. So your post showed you dancing on the range, right? Was it Billie Jean playing?
Dude, just quick side note to that. So we're at this beautiful range in Texas, which it's hot down there, and they've got a 50-yard square covered range, which is pretty awesome. Concrete floor, 50 by 50 yards. And the guy that runs the range is a buddy of mine. All of a sudden, there's a PA. He just starts playing. First, he played YMCA, which was hilarious because we were doing calisthenics, jumping jacks, and some stuff, trying to get people a little winded. So he starts playing YMCA, and then about 5 minutes later, Billie Jean came on. So I'm like, hey, man, this is kind of a thing. I'm bringing a PA to every ring.
I know. I was just thinking the same thing. Like, Jim's got that now. It's like, hey, live DJ on Saturday for the gym.
Yeah.
Just do that for training.
Go ahead.
Hey, but I could see, my initial thought in my head was, well, I know you, and I've already decided that I like you, so I don't really give a shit about my fundamental beliefs or what I have. I've been cultured through the military, right, for my professional career, and there's certain taboo things or issues like grassroots during training.
No ass shaking on the range.
Just things that would be frowned upon because it's so. Everything's, everybody's got a tight ass about training and all this different shit. And they think that somebody doing something, you got to have control, or too much grab ass is going to cause an issue. And I'm sure it's the same thing for law enforcement, any big institution that's involved with stuff like that. They have a mindset, right? And you got to be that way. And so the initial stuff. So the initial thought is like, that's not right in my head because of the military mindset. But then I think critically again, just because I was in the military and it has a lot of good things that it's given to me in my life, it also has some things that can be reserved just for the military life or for dealing with privates and people that are inexperienced and dumbasses that you got to deal with sometimes, right? That's some of those control measures that we put in play to cover down on the lowest common denominator amongst your people. But something like that is what I thought about. It was like, people's gonna not like that, just like they don't like the slack line, or they're gonna criticize Mick because of his personality. And that, what's wrong with it though? What is fundamentally wrong with that? What was done wrong? What was unsafe? What was preventing others from learning? What was bad? I think.
Quit judging me, dude.
No. I'm just saying what's going through my head.
I know, I'm kidding.
But I bet that behavior and being so loose and having a personality like that that's the easy target for guys that have that military, long-term military law enforcement background. Like, well, that's silly.
Just for the listener, though, context so they understand, because not everybody saw that video. Everybody was on the range. Everybody was facing down range. Everybody had a target about a yard in front of them.
Yeah, you had a hand on target, right?
Yeah, and we were simulating that a lot of times violent criminal actions against people is not what we practice for. We practice squared off to a target 5-10 yards away. Yeah, and we get to just draw and do a nice presentation, when in reality a lot of violent criminals come and attack you as an ambush. So I was explaining to the people that you could be at the post office, you could be in the checkout line, you could be all these videos we see at gas stations and convenience stores, and somebody comes in and a fight's on, or even dancing. The music came on, and I thought, shit goes down all the time like that. People get shot in Chicago every freaking day, and they didn't think they were going to get shot. So I think that I was just trying to provide some context to get people to think like you have to go from A to B really quickly without there having to be, some whistle range command allowing you to fight. So if people don't like that, they can kiss my ass.
Well, the bottom line is this. A lot of people are threatened by somebody that might be in the same industry, or they consider in the same business as them. And they're looking for ways for them to be better than you.
Yeah.
And so when they find something they can latch, well, you know what I'm saying? They're just we do that. That's a common thing with the male ego, is that instead of me getting better, let me just look at ways for you to appear worse, for my mind and for me to proliferate throughout the community to others. So now I can make myself look better compared to you. So let me talk shit about you.
If you didn't know me, so, and this is a honesty kind of thing, because I know I'm guilty of it. So you and I talk about this all the time. Hey man, did you see XYZ? Or we'll send each other a video that we saw. Like, what do you think of this? And then we'll wait for the other one. You do it to me all the time. What do you think of this? And before, you don't tell me this guy's an idiot or something. You wait to see. Yeah, you see, and I do it to you. And then sometimes I'm sure we both think, why do we care? Like, why am I spending the energy? But if you didn't know me and you saw that, would you have spent the time to think through it? Or you would have been like, this dude's a freaking dumbass dancing on the freaking gun range. If you didn't know me and you just saw it and it was just like XYZ Shooting Academy from Delaware.
I think years ago, my natural instinct would have been, oh, this jackass. But now my instinct, based off of, my conditioning from the military, was to think, I can see where some guys would look at that, because I understand being closed-minded like that and thinking that everything has to go this way, the way I was taught for so many years, and thinking that. But so, years ago, maybe I would have thought that. But now I kind of take everything, no matter how stupid, unless it's just completely unsafe.
Now, wait a second. That wasn't stupid. Those were some sweet moves.
No, they were good. They're good moves. And maybe I can identify with you a little better because I can actually dance. And a lot of guys are scared to dance.
That passive-aggressive insult was him saying, I can't dance.
No, I'm saying, no. I'm saying you can dance, and I'm saying I can appreciate it better because I, too, can dance.
I know. I'm just laughing.
And I, too, like to dance.
Yeah,
right?
I do too.
So people that think that's stupid and they never put themselves in that position, they're going to think it's stupid. I used to have an old team sergeant. God rest his soul. He passed away after he retired. He went overseas, died, and he used to call grappling and fighting, anything martial art wise, called it man dancing, and he made fun of it. He called hip hop music boots in the dryer music. Right?
You said that to me once. I never heard that. I never heard that before. That's what you called it. Yeah.
Well, when we made bombs, we'd always play hip hop music in there, making our charges for breaching. And he'd be like, "Well, you can't make no damn bombs without that boots in the dryer music. You got to have that on." He kind of warmed up to it. But he called it man dance, and he would never grapple. He didn't really, well, I guess he did a long time ago, but a lot of guys, that was the mindset, especially tough guys. They don't want to expose themselves to the vulnerabilities. And
right, I'm not letting some guy put his hands all over me.
yeah, and there's, some people think the same thing about dancing and other things, that they might align with things that are fluffy and stupid. So they just, so you could, anybody that knows anything, if you're looking down at grappling or putting your hands on somebody because you can honestly say that you don't think it's worthwhile, you know, I apologize, or I feel sorry for them because they're ignorant, for one. But a lot of people just say that because they are wanting to put something down that they are too scared to get involved with, or they don't want to put themselves out there and do for fear of vulnerabilities being exposed, right? So emotional intelligence. If I feel that emotionally about something that I see, what's the thought that provoked that? So this is a good example for guys. If I see Mick dancing on the range in the video and there's nothing unsafe about it, nothing bad in any way, except that it's not the same etiquette that I'm used to, what is the logical thought? What is the thought that provoked that emotion from me? Is it because this guy's pretty popular and getting good classes and he's not the same as me, he does something different to me, and that threatens me some way? Is that the thought that causes you to have this emotion? Or is it, this is just totally unsafe and just not how you're supposed to do things, and scientifically, if you dance on a range, it shows through statistics that people are 80% less likely to pick up the information that you're putting out, you know what I'm saying? Something like that. Like, so where is that thought? What is the thought that is provoking that emotion inside of you? Come to terms with yourself, be honest with yourself, and if you're thinking that, find out why. Find out why. Don't just sum it up as because there's a guy dancing on the range. All right, that don't say anything. That's nothing. That's not analyzing anything. That's not dissecting anything and figuring out what that thought is.
Did you hear the live feed I did this morning?
No.
That was exactly what I talked about. Don't look at the data, process it, formulate an opinion after that. Don't just spout out whatever comes to mind, because you're probably spouting out something based on emotion rather than actually analyzing data. That's exactly what I was just talking about.
People, I think people, we go to the, you've heard me say this, we go to the path of least resistance. And some people's path of least resistance is to react emotionally all the time because that's just natural for them.
Yeah.
And just go with it. And some people's path of least resistance is to stay away from emotions no matter what and think logically, what is to be done? Well, guess what? You're a human and you have two parts, the intelligence, our logical part, and the emotional part. Why do you think we have both? Because we both.
Yeah.
You don't just lock one away and say, you know what? You know, it's like me taking a magazine in my handgun. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to load 10 bullets in my magazine that holds 17 because I don't need those extra bullets. I'm just going to use these 10, you know, like,
right.
You're doing yourself a disservice, and you're not operating the way that, whether you believe in God or just science and evolution, like, we're made this way for a certain reason. And anything that we have is for a purpose. Survival instincts, fight or flight, all that shit is for a purpose. We talk about it in the classes a lot, right? The physiological things that happen is for a purpose. It's intended to help you survive. We just need to be able to think while we're doing that.
Yeah, man.
So the emotions are there for a reason. The thoughts are there for a reason. They go together. You can't just turn one off and say, well, I'm going to operate the rest of my life avoiding that one.
Yeah.
It's going to come out some way. And until you learn how to navigate it or have some of that intelligence in that area, you're going to be doing it, you know, blindly, which is never going to have good results, or never going to have the best results anyway. All right. So people that want to get away from the emotions, which I used to try to do because I thought that I needed to have no emotions because I didn't trust people in my life or whatever. I'm like, it's not good to have emotions, be logical, but I was naturally emotional. So it would come out in the wrong way. I would hold things in and then I'd explode.
Yeah.
And then people are like, man, he's gets angry. Yeah, because the whole time I was not reacting to my emotions or not processing them, figuring out and accepting that I had the emotions at all. I'm just like, no, I don't have emotions. And my body's like, well, I beg to differ, you dumbass. The day 3 after putting up with this shit, you're going to explode, and then you're going to look like a fucking maniac because you've been holding these emotions in and not processing them correctly because you've been pretending that you didn't need emotions when in fact you're built with emotions for a fucking reason, dumbass. So
he's getting kind of emotional right now talking.
Yeah. But people need to look at that, analyze themselves, understand that, hey, if you're trying to suppress the emotions, don't do that.
Right.
Feeling the emotions is for a thought that you have. It's for a thought that you have. Figure out what that thought is. Sometimes you don't know. It's been so automatic. It's been so ingrained in your head for years and years and conditioned in there, right? Think about the kids growing up, like something that you had raising up. Like I had low self-esteem as a kid because everything around me didn't build me up. So I started to believe what my environment was telling me. And I had to learn how to, all right, I feel like I'm a shithead, but let's observe this, Z, and figure out, are you really? Based off of your own information, based off of what you know, not what somebody has told you.
Yeah.
Right? And you've done the same thing. We've talked about it before. That's the same thing right there. Is this something that I think is bad, or I'm feeling a certain way but because I just never seen it before and I don't understand it and it's not normal to me and I'm not used to thinking those thoughts? Or is it something that could be good, could be bad, and I need to think critically and take both sides of the story, take all the information that I can get and put that to good use, and then make an educated decision.
Yeah.
Based off of emotional intelligence, which is really figuring out where those emotions come from.
Something
so, about the political world and everything. Everybody needs to do that, though. That's something that's running rampant in this world right now. Is people making decisions and acting on things based off of limited information and just something that somebody told them or some feelings they have, like the protesters and on any political side. You hear them out there, people asking questions on interviews. I sent you a guy that I follow on Instagram. He has the spoon and he interviews people. He does political. He's a conservative, but he just goes.
But he asks people stuff and they have no idea what they're talking about. And
like, tell me why you think Trump is racist, or why you think Hillary Clinton did this, and they're like, because it's out there and there's stuff, and they're like, they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. They just want to get emotionally charged into something. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. A buddy of mine this morning that I've known for years put something on Facebook. He's a liberal-minded dude, and it was a really anti-Trump thing. And it said, Trump says veterans with PTSD are not strong enough to handle it. And then it showed like Trump in a pulpit, and it was a headline from a news outlet. So then he wrote, so you guys really want to defend this president? Now, I don't talk a lot about politics in this platform, but everybody that hasn't voted should be voting in these upcoming elections because it's super important. So a friend of mine, another friend, and I don't engage in this kind of banter on Facebook, but another friend wrote, dude, did you even watch that video clip? It's totally bullshit news. Like, it was out of context. So then the guy that posted the article wrote, you're just one of those people that says all news is fake. And these guys are friends. So I'm like, well, I'm going to click on the clip. It was 20 seconds long. I watched it. Categorically false. It was total bullshit. Trump is at a university. They're talking about PTSD and veteran suicide. He's with a general, and he says veteran suicide is a terrible problem. We need to do better at helping vets deal with PTSD. And then this is what he said. Some guys deal well with the stresses of combat. Others don't deal well. They're not tough enough. And he didn't say tough. The way he said it was basically, he was saying some guys deal with it, some guys don't deal with it. But they mixed up the words, made a headline that said vets are pussies that have PTSD is basically how it was written. And the fact that this guy wanted just to, one, share this with the world, that it was bullshit, then argue a point. And I sent him a message. I go, dude, just click on the link and watch it. You know, like, you didn't even watch it. You just regurgitated something that you didn't take 30 seconds to look at. And now you're fighting with your friend over it, arguing a baseless point that has no ground. Like, you're it's just stupid. It makes you look stupid. But that is such a, to your point, I need to be right. I need to stand my ground, show you that I'm smarter, I'm better, my political candidate's the one to go for. Everything for me always comes back to what's my goal? What's my goal? And this talk of emotion and intelligence or intellect, our thoughts are not us. My emotion's not me, but my emotion in my thoughts can affect everything in my reality based on how I or you react to or process or engage with your emotions. The fun thing is, like, all of this emotional stuff that happens, like when we're young people, a lot of people don't realize from like 0 to teenage years, our brain's still formulating. You know this. Our brain is literally still developing. And like, if I smell lilacs, I instantly have a nice thought of my mother. That smell of lilacs. My mom would hang clothes on the line. We had a big lilac hedge in the backyard. I could smell lilacs and instantly have this nice thought. If I smell Lysol or like Pine Sol, it instantly makes me get angry. And it's like a flash of anger because a school that I went to that was full of some prick-ass abusive people as a kid, that smell like something triggers. And as an adult, it's not like I'm like walking around smelling Pine Sol wanting to punch people, but somewhere deep in my brain, it's like, this makes me recall this bad thing. And as an adult, I know that I will, it doesn't happen often, but if it does, I will just remind myself, like, that was a long, long time ago. None of that stuff means anything to me now. And what I personally do, if I have the one like with my mother, I say, man, I love that I have lilacs. I've got lilacs in our yard, and I embrace that nice memory. And the one that causes me anger or angst or rage, or like a song, right? We can hear a song and it makes us remember that first dance, or a song like, oh my God, that was a song I listened.
Something that you attach from your senses to a certain memory.
Yeah.
Or conditioned thought.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like PTSD, a gunshot, a loud noise, that can make somebody recall something that's not positive, or for me, like a man getting aggressive, you've seen me do this, causes me to do a certain, go to a certain place mentally. So this was my point. I instead will say that is not a reaction that I will accept. I am flushing that out, and I program myself through telling. I will sometimes say it. The smell of Pine Sol does not cause me unease. Now, I'm not just, people listening to this, don't get weird. It's not like I have like a phobia of Pine Sol, but I'm using it as an example. Yeah. I am not going to allow something like a scent going into my nose to change my ability to be happy or have composure and calm.
And at some point in your life, I'm sure that you would realize, I don't know if you actually realize this, but I can foresee it. I can see it being an issue. Like when you're younger and you didn't understand what you associated with that Pine Sol smell, you might get in a fucking little snippy attitude, and you'd be like, what the hell has changed? And why am I being snippy now?
Uh-huh.
And what's helped you overcome that and not just act out of the emotion invoked from that thought that's conditioned in your head about that Pine Sol smell, you improved your intelligence in that area. You said, where's that coming from?
Yeah, man.
And now you can counter that negative information with truth. That the Pine Sol that you're smelling now has nothing to do with the situation that you associate the Pine Sol with. So it's not a true emotion. I mean, it is a true emotion, but it's not a true thought in your head that's causing that emotion. So I'm going back and saying that Pine Sol has nothing to do with that. That's not the true context of this situation. Moving on. That plays over with. Right. And you've learned how to do that. And now you probably avoid getting snippy or whatever might happen because of something, coming up in your memory, a bad memory attached to something.
Yeah, man. For I think anybody listening to this, that whole process, which is extremely simple, is contingent on two things: the desire to understand why you behave that certain way, and then the ability to be honest with yourself. I have a sibling that refuses categorically in any way, shape, or form to deal with anything we're talking about because it doesn't feel good. Like, that doesn't feel good. The same reason, well, I'm not going to jog. Jogging sucks. Or I'm not going to go climb up on that mountain and see the beautiful view because I'm scared of heights. So people, you have to be willing to deal with some level of discomfort. Like if you're afraid to be buried in a coffin full of spiders 20 feet under concrete, maybe there's not a good benefit of being buried in a coffin 20 feet down full of spiders.
No, I need to practice it.
Right. And there's got to be some commensurate gain or benefit. But being like, for me, the point you just made, and I bet everybody listening can relate to this, something happening and all of a sudden there being a marked change in your behavior and maybe not understanding why. I remember some things that would cause me to have these negative type feelings, and then it would throw my day off, which would then maybe cause me to get in a fight with my wife or whatever. You get tired of that shit. Either you get tired of it or you become so cynical towards life that you just accept that this cycle of is how life is, and I choose not to.
Which is another thought that was going to make you feel worse, because what's that saying, that quote that I've heard you say, whether you think you're right or you're wrong or you're good or you're bad, you're right.
If you think you can or you think you can't,
yeah,
you're right. Yeah, Henry Ford said that. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
So once you develop that cycle of thinking that way, based off of the compiling issues in your life and you not dealing with them or figuring out that emotional intelligence. Sorry, I had a low battery thing pop up. But once you keep avoiding that and letting it compile on top of each other, then eventually you're saying, well, this is just what life is about then. This is just, life is shit. Life is
the next thing you know, now you're drinking too much, indulging too much in anything, cigs, alcohol, caffeine, drugs, sex, something to try to pacify or provide some benefit, or not benefit, but some pleasure, because you've created such a shitty way of dealing with and interacting with life. It's
right,
pretty crappy.
And people are very, I have a theory, that life is hard nowadays. We have a lot of broken families. It's across the nation, right? We're not family oriented like we once were. You go to other countries, you'll see what family oriented is like. Some of these countries, they'll do anything for their family. Why do you think? I'm not getting into the immigration thing, but people that immigrate over here, they're sending money back to their families. They never lose touch. They never say, well, that's them now. They're family, like I do with my family. I'm not involved with my, some of my family like some others are, or like would be traditional, in our culture, but they love their families. We're away from all that stuff. We have all these things going on in life. People are not dealing with things emotionally. They're taking pills to solve the problem, which nothing's wrong with medication, as long as that's just getting you a good base to start the therapy process that you need, opening your mind a little bit, getting you in a better situation mentally to be able to embrace progress, right? But they're turning to just escaping, which is the same thing we do at a lower level when we don't want to have feelings, or we don't want to think through things. We just want to react off of feelings. We're escaping one or the other. And then it becomes extreme, and you compile the problems in your life. Like, I'm always emotional, so there's always drama in my life. My life is shit. Every day is a hard work. Or I don't want to feel emotions, but I'm always feeling cynical and mad at people for some things. And it's because of this or that, because they're just trying to stay away from the emotion and figure out why they're feeling that way.
Yeah.
So then it becomes compiled, and their life becomes so much shit, and they have so much stress and loss of control, seemingly, that they want to escape that, because that's an uncomfortable feeling. So what's escape it via, more innocent ways would be, just doing a hobby, or being overly committed to some kind of hobby or area of your life. Workaholics.
Yeah, watching lots of TV.
Or the drugs. They want to escape, which is the easiest way, because it's a chemical escape, and it really chemically makes you not give a shit. When you get drunk, if you get too drunk, you don't really care about consequences as much, right? Shit goes out the window. Your apprehension goes out the window. Drugs, same way. If anybody's ever taken painkillers, I can see how people could get hooked on painkillers real easily, because it's like a feeling of bliss. Like, hey, everything's great and the world is awesome. You know, I like to feel this all the time. The problem is that's nothing lasts forever like that. And there's always consequences to it. There's always going to be a price to pay. There's always going to be physical consequences of whatever issues you have. There's going to be mental consequences. There's going to be relationship consequences. There's always consequences, and we have to figure those things out, or we're going to be repeating that process over and over. And back to the whole definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is insanity. And that's what we do, though. It's what we do. Like, let's just escape again and then feel like shit because we didn't do or perform the way we wanted, or the consequences that came along with me escaping so much, or let's just work more so I don't have to deal with the relationships I have, or let's just do this. And we still have those reoccurring consequences, and it drives us back into that same direction, yet we don't change it. Yet we don't change it because
comes a reckoning, though.
And the emotional part of that is everything that you do, everything that you do in your life is going to have an emotional consequence. There's going to be emotions tied to it.
Yeah.
Right? So you do something good emotions, hopefully. Bad, something that you feel is bad, or bad consequences, or something goes wrong in your life, it's going to be bad emotions tied to it. Now that compiles. And the more that you avoid dealing with that, when you do decide to deal with it, the more that you're going to have to deal with, the more pain you're going to have to go through in that time. It's almost like an infection, right? Mm-hmm. Infection and a sore. So if I got a cut on my finger and I just avoid it altogether and just let it go because I don't take the time to put some alcohol on it or whatever and clean it and then bandage it up, protect it, then it starts getting infected, and it's going to demand attention at some point. Now the pain or the discomfort involved is going to be determined by how much I put it off, right? So the more you put that off, it's uncomfortable in the first place. Emotions are going to be uncomfortable, especially the feelings of.
I think we just lost Z. I think Z computer might have just died. If that's the case, this was a good spot to end this podcast. I want to leave you with this. Emotion does not control you, neither does thought. How you react to your thoughts and your emotions controls the outcome of your life. Thus, have a goal to live in any way that you see fit. If it is to be fulfilled, happy, full of joy, full of peace, impacting the world around you in a meaningful and thoughtful way, creating a family or a life that takes you to the places that you want to go, learn to work with your thoughts, with your emotions, learn to control your thoughts and identify what your emotions are telling you. This holds true to excelling in work, in relationships, to winning in violence, and more often than not, avoiding and evading violence. This is Mickey with CarryTrainer.com. You had Zee Durham on here today. I'm sorry that we lost him. You guys be well. If you haven't followed us here on YouTube, please do subscribe, hit the like button. Any comments or questions that you have on this topic, send us a message, leave them here if you're on YouTube, and hope to see you guys soon. Remember, you need to learn to be your own cavalry because you live but once, my friend. Your life is yours and yours alone to be responsible for. Live, thrive, and survive today. Peace out. Visit our website, CarryTrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., CarryTrainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@CarryTrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@CarryTrainer.com or CarryTrainer.com.